Feelings run everything. When we are driven to do something, it's because of how we think we're going to feel when we get there or get that thing. Fortunately, we can actually generate feelings by thinking specific things. We don't need to wait until we get to that state, that status, that place, or get that thing. But most of us are so mired in difficult feelings, or we're so habituated to avoiding our feelings that we never get to the place of feeling things on purpose. We don't even know it's an option. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery, where I help people heal their emotional, psychological, and spiritual wounds and make deep, lasting changes in their lives. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I'm a boundaries coach who specializes in helping women who are focused on what others are thinking and doing and neglect themselves in the process. And I have coached hundreds of people on how to build healthy boundaries using my exclusive Build framework. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-step recovery fellowship, and I don't claim to speak for any particular 12-step fellowship. I also don't believe that 12-step recovery is the only way to recover. You might need additional help. I'm an avid beachcomber who collects sea glass, shells, wood, and stones. I am a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially the Christmas movies. Hello, Christmas in July. I wear fingerless gloves from September to June because my hands are always cold, so I have about 15 pairs. And I get a huge kick out of counting how many days, weeks, and months there are until my birthday or Christmas at completely random times of the year. My hope is that you'll find my words concretely helpful in improving your life, whether you're in recovery or not. If you like what you've heard on this episode, please screenshot it and share it on your social media and tag me at Higher Power Coaching. This is episode 265, How to Embrace Emotional Sovereignty, Taking Ownership of Your Feelings, Not Others. One of the most difficult aspects of the recovery journey for everybody, no matter why they're in recovery, is managing their feelings. I'd say it's one of the most difficult aspects of life for everybody, at least for those of us in the U.S. who've never been taught to manage our feelings. Feelings run everything. When we are driven to do something, it's because of how we think we're going to feel when we get there or get that thing. Fortunately, we can actually generate feelings by thinking specific things. We don't need to wait until we get to that state, that status, that place, or get that thing. But most of us are so mired in difficult feelings, or we're so habituated to avoiding our feelings that we never get to the place of feeling things on purpose. We don't even know it's an option. Much of it is that we don't even know what our feelings are because we have been pushing them down for so long. We're afraid of them, probably because we weren't taught how to manage them when we were children. So we were overwhelmed by our feelings, and the only way we had to deal with them at that tender age was to suppress, deny, or avoid them. Our feelings may have felt so big and out of proportion as little kids that we didn't know how to handle them. And if our parents weren't taught how to manage their feelings, which they probably weren't, there's no way that they could teach us how to manage our feelings. In fact, they may have sort of offloaded their feelings onto us, which was doubly overwhelming. That was kind of my situation. When that happens, we come to feel responsible for other people's feelings, which, for the record, we're not. Learning that is one of the hugest revelations many of my clients have. They grew up believing it's their responsibility to make others happy. I know that I grew up with that too. And to do whatever it takes to make that happen. That's how and why many of us become people pleasers. I was actually feeling other people's feelings, which came from me being in an enmeshed family. Being enmeshed means there's no separation between two or more parties. That can feel like, in some ways, I am you and you are me. So when you feel upset, I automatically feel upset. The last therapist I worked with helped me to see that I did a lot of the feeling work for everybody in my family. And then I sort of got punished for it. It was almost like my parents were pushing away their uncomfortable feelings. And those feelings sort of sprouted up in me, which meant I had all these big, huge, giant feelings because they weren't just mine, they were everybody else's too, which of course was way too much for them to handle. They couldn't handle their own feelings, never mind these giant feelings of the little girl in their family. So it was like, we need to push that shit down. So we're going to foist them on you, but then we're going to squash them in you by doing things like shaming you for having feelings, punishing you for not getting it together, and saying things like, do you want me to give you a reason to cry? Now, there are many reasons why feelings are really difficult, but what I've learned in recovery is that it's the resistance to feelings that makes them so much more difficult than actually feeling the feelings. I love the distinction between feelings that I recently heard from David Bayer on his podcast, A Changed Mind, which I will link in the show notes. It's fantastic. Bear says there are two types of feelings, powerful feelings and primal feelings. That distinction really resonated with me. Many other people describe feelings and they make it seem like some feelings are good and some are bad. Feelings may feel good and feel bad, but the feelings themselves are not good or bad. They just are. In fact, they're information. They're part of the human experience. No matter what kind of feeling you're having, whether primal or powerful, it's going to pass. I love thinking about feelings as emotions. Emotion, that is energy in motion, because the nature of all energy is to morph and change, which means the nature of all feelings is to morph and change. When we feel really upset, we often want to avoid it because maybe we think it's going to last forever. And realistically, no feeling you have ever had has lasted forever. It's funny of how we never think like that about delightful feelings. If you're feeling particularly depressed, it may feel like it's lasting forever or it will last forever. I've suffered from some pretty severe episodes of depression. The fact that I'm normally a pretty positive, optimistic, and upbeat person almost made that depression worse for me because I felt like I was in this big depressive pit and I would look way up to the top of that pit, which is where I used to live up there at the high level. And looking at that distance between where I currently was in my depressive state at the bottom of the pit and where I had been at the top almost made the weight of the depression even worse. It was like a drain on my energy to look at that distance because I was like, oh my God, how much fucking energy is it going to take for me to climb back up there? Which I'm sure made my depression worse and so difficult. But I eventually came out of all those episodes. And in fact, I haven't had one of those episodes since 2014. So that's 10 years that I haven't had one of those episodes. And it was never that long between those episodes since they started happening, which was in my 20s. And recovery has everything to do with that because, among other things, I live my life in a very purposeful manner. I live a life of meaning. And I've learned how to manage my feelings. Last week's episode about coming out of the pit of doom is a very good description of many of the ways that I've done that. What I want to talk about now is other people's feelings. I have a whole bunch of other episodes on feelings, and in those episodes, I really talk about you and your feelings. I will link those other 7 episodes in the show notes. But today, I want to talk about other people's feelings. First, there's feeling other people's feelings. I really didn't understand I was doing that. Part of that understanding came from what I talked about earlier, being enmeshed with my family. I didn't understand until I got into recovery that I don't have to feel other people's feelings. Also, I don't have to manage other people's feelings. What I do in the past, especially with somebody that I cared about, regardless of what was going on for me, even if I was in a very powerful feeling state like joy, if someone I loved came along and they were feeling a primal feeling state, I would automatically lower my energy to meet whatever state they were in. It was not something I did consciously, but once I started doing all this feeling work, I could see that I had been doing that. And until you can see that you're doing something, you don't have the option to change it. That's why they always say awareness is the first step before any kind of change can happen. So I could see that I had been lowering my energy level to match the other person. And it was almost like I thought I was being disrespectful of them or something if I maintained my powerful emotion of joy and they were feeling sorrow. My subconscious process that I believed I have to become sorrowful just like them to be with them in their feeling state. That's what that process was for me. Now, you can still be respectful, caring, and loving to others without feeling the same feeling they're feeling. I just didn't know that that was an option to go ahead and still feel my joyful feeling. The key that helped me with that was something that happened my first year of recovery. The situation was that my older brother was going through something really difficult, and I was talking about him after a meeting with one of my dear friends in recovery, and I was really upset. And she reached over to me, put her hand on my shoulder, and she said, "Barb, it's not happening to you." And I was like, holy shit, you're right. It's not happening to me. Oh my God, it's not happening to me. I had literally been acting like his situation and therefore his feelings were happening to me. That was a huge paradigm shift for me. For a while after that, what I started doing when I was encountering situations where something upsetting happened to someone I cared about, I would literally say to myself, it's not happening to me. It's not happening to me. It's not happening to me. And that was so fucking helpful. It was one of the ways in which I was able to create a boundary between other people's feelings and my feelings. Instead of becoming a reactor to the feelings that were going on around me, I became an actor around my own feelings. That is, I became proactive and decided I was not going to feel that feeling. Another thing that I did as a result of feeling other people's feelings, because I didn't want to feel their primal feelings, I only wanted to feel powerful feelings, is that I would take responsibility for other people's feelings. If someone was feeling sad and I didn't want them to because I didn't want to feel sad, I would take it on as if it was my fucking job, my career, to get them out of feeling sorrowful so they could become joyful. I tried to do and say stuff to get them out of their current feeling and into a joyful one, almost negating like they shouldn't feel that way. Let's say they were grieving the death of a loved one. We do such a horrible job in our society with anything to do with feelings, but I think especially so when people are grieving. We don't know what to say. And there really is nothing to say because what we want to do is take their pain away, which isn't possible and they don't need to have their pain taken away. Because if you can't grieve when someone you love dies, when can you grieve? It makes sense to have difficult feelings at a time like that because it's a very difficult thing to happen. Because I felt responsible for other people's feelings, I also wanted to make other people responsible for my feelings. For example, I used to believe that people made me feel things or that they hurt my feelings. What I now understand is that it's my perception of what they're doing or saying, or my perspective on what they're doing or saying, that's actually causing my feelings. It's not what they're doing, it's what I think about what they're doing. So I give this example to my clients all the time. I'm sure you can probably identify with this. Let's say somebody that you don't particularly care for says something and it fucking pisses you off. And then another time, somebody that you really respect and admire says the very same thing. And it either has a neutral effect on you, doesn't bother you one way or the other, or you go, maybe there's something to that. That is a perfect example to illustrate that it's not what the person did or said, it's your perspective. It's how you think about what they did or said. So in this case, your perspective is that first person is a jerk. They annoy the shit out of me, and anything that comes out of their mouth is bullshit. Whereas the person you respect and admire, you care about and take heed of what they say because of your respect and admiration for them. So you assume there must be some merit to it, even if it was the same thing they said that the other person said that pissed you off. So your feelings are your responsibility. Others are not responsible for your feelings, and that is good news. Because if other people really were responsible for your feelings, you're screwed. Because there are 8 billion other people on the planet. You don't want those 8 billion people to be in charge of your feelings. Because our feelings guide our decisions until we learn how to manage them. You're the one living your life, so you get to be in charge of your feelings. Now, I don't have a way to tie this up in a neat bow. My point is just to make these things come to your awareness. So hopefully you can start choosing differently, because that's where it starts, with awareness. Awareness that you get to be in charge of your own feelings. You don't have to feel other people's feelings. You don't have to manage other people's feelings. And you don't have to blame your feelings on other people. You are in charge of your feelings. You're responsible for your feelings, and other people are responsible for their feelings. You are not. I was recently reminded by a friend that when I first started recovery, I didn't feel lovable. I almost can't believe that I used to feel that way, and that I kind of forgot something so profound, because I truly love myself now. And I want that for everybody. If you don't love yourself, there's literally nothing that can make up for that. I created something exclusively for my private clients, since many of them don't love themselves. And I've now opened up my private vault to share it with up to 10 people individually. It's called the Self-Love Sprint. You'll grow to love yourself and truly feel worthy, so you can stop saying yes when you really want to say no, stop neglecting yourself and putting everyone else first, stop saying all kinds of nasty shit to yourself. That is not what people who love themselves and feel deserving do. You'll stop being afraid that others will think that you're selfish for taking time to care for yourself. This is also for you if you don't really know who you are, because you've always been such a fucking chameleon. Go to higherpowercc.com/love sprint. Remember, I'm only offering 10 of these, so don't wait. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did or you wouldn't still be listening, then you're gonna love the other things I have to offer. If you'd love pre-release podcast scripts and episodes before anyone else gets them, or if you'd love access to content from my private vault that I developed exclusively for my private clients, which is like having a work session with me without me actually being there, go to patreon.com/higherpowercoaching. There are 3 tiers ranging from as low as $4 up to $24 a month. You'll also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has content very similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. Please like and subscribe to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet. I'd also love it if you'd leave a review, which you can do either in the show notes or on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other people find my podcast so they can get the benefits you've gotten from listening. If someone came to mind when you listen to this particular episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run group and private coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net, where you can hop onto my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I would love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.